Hi, I'm Kevin,
And I'm Amanda.
and we are serving up.
All that jam. A lighthearted look at the weekend jam bands.
Where we break down the jam scene's biggest stories,
Talk new bands.
upcoming tours,
And show reviews. A little laughing, some hot takes, and an always positive message for the community.
Week of January 22nd, 2024. Tim Bluhm.
Welcome back. Spent the last week frozen in, but we had great talks with Alan Evans, Peter Negroponte, Natalie Brooke, and DJ Williams. And watch some Spafford because Spafford is always free. It was a pretty good week there. How was your week, Amanda?
Hey, Kevin. It was a great week. For me right now, probably the biggest news is that I have booked lodging and airfare for Jazz Fest. And we're going to come back to that a little bit later. But this is my first Jazz Fest. I've tried to get there many times and not really been able to. So just really excited for that.
Nice. Now, which weekend?
I'm going to do the second weekend, be there for almost a whole week, actually. So,
Right. So I shouldn't tell you what's going on the first weekend.
well, that's part of what I want to talk about later, which is reactions to the lineup and the grid, which of course was just released last week.
All right. Yeah, we did a show. We did a thing about the night shows, me and T last night. And something popped up and I was like, wow, I hope that's the weekend you were there. Well, we'll talk about that later. It's a little teaser there. Um,
Yes. Yeah. I mean, to your point about being frozen in, it was very cold here last week in Colorado. Schools were closed. I've been asking for winter, and I guess you can blame it on me because we got it.
there you go. They closed schools all week because of the cold or because of the snow?
No snow. Schools were closed coming off of last Monday's holiday because of temps that had been down in like -10, -9
Right.
territory. Yeah.
I had my kids down to the bus stop once. It was like -7. And I was like, this is wrong. And then I was like, I would have walked to school myself in old times, but
Well, that's
that's
how
a whole nother story. So, what do you think? Let's get this out of the way because I haven't talked to you about it. What are you thinking with the Phish announcement?
wow. So much. I'm thinking so much. Now, are you thinking, let me see, are you referencing the details related to tickets and passes and all of that?
Yes, yes. The whole structure of the thing. I was looking back and somebody was talking about Lemon Wheel was $200, so I pulled my ticket out and it was 75, and 75 included camping and parking and all fees. And I'm just looking at the way they have this structured. I'm not a dumb guy, but I was just lost trying to read through what you needed to do. And
So confusing. Someone on one of the threads that I was on said something like, I think you need a PhD to be able to understand all of this. And I chimed in and said, I have one and I am so confused. And after about 45 minutes of just looking around and trying to figure some things out, I said, you know what? I'm going to come back to this. And I haven't done it. Yeah, lots of people out there just trying to make sense also, not only of what it is that they might need to purchase, but the priority for it. So, for example, and you know what, I understand this. Telluride Bluegrass is the same way. High Sierra, very similar. If you want your RV pass, is it boondocking? Do you have electric? Those sell out so quickly usually. So, realistically, I understand if someone's in that situation, they really want to know. But it felt like a lot of people had questions. And then, of course, the pricing was getting a lot of people too, which I understand.
I said they should have done it like Travago, and you just put in your price range, and they're like, "This is what you get."
Yeah, that's a really good point because kind of at the same time as I was trying to make sense of all the Phish information, I also was booking my own flights for things and had to do some work travel planning. And I thought, wow, there's sites that really help people organize this. And for something with so many options, it would have kind of been cool to envision a totally different way to go about presenting this to fans.
Right, and the ticketing was the on sale was not flawless.
Hmm.
There were a lot of people who Glenn Close is sold out 5 minutes in, and then people were refreshing 2 hours later, and there were passes.
Yeah, just a lot of, I think what it comes down to, and I think you're kind of alluding to this, is it feels like a very inconsistent user experience,
Mm-hmm.
one way or
Yeah.
another. And maybe that's just the way it has to be for a festival that is doing so many different things, but it
Mm-hmm.
also felt unnecessarily complicated somehow.
Right. Yeah. So we'll see what happens. I plan on being there. We're talking the Wook Plus guys, they all want to go. We have not rented an RV. We did not get a pass, but I noticed on Cash or Trade quite a few have Glenn Close RV passes for Sphere tickets.
Mm, interesting.
Yeah, but they are not mailing the RV passes until after the Sphere shows, so that's going to be like a trust me bro thing. But what happens after the Sphere and all these people that couldn't trade?
Mhm.
That's when you pick one up. You just think, all right, in 3 months I need to have $800 sitting there to be able to buy this.
Right. And I do feel that for so many people now, it really is a matter of something that we've talked about actually somewhat recently. There was a end of year survey related to the music industry we had discussed, and one of the questions in the survey was for fans, have you either opened a credit card, maxed out a credit card, basically used your own line of credit more than you normally would to be able to attend, or are you planning to? And a lot of people said yes. And we're seeing it happen.
Right. Yeah, and that's just, I don't know. That's not the move, at least for me. When I was in college back in olden times, I was 18, they gave me an American Express card. And I paid that thing off for 7 years afterwards. And when it was paid off, I cut it up. And if I don't have the money, I don't have the money.
Yeah, it's tough. And you have to really think about the total cost because
Mm-hmm.
obviously it's always more than what you're buying just on the day of sale. And so
Right.
it adds up. I have not committed to anything other than Jazz Fest and actually have been very surprised, at least from Denver. Airfare was much more reasonable. It was actually inexpensive compared to a lot of travel that I do and found a great spot. There's four of us. So, all things considered, I'm really not in for that much. And I thought it was going to be so much more expensive. Now, I haven't gotten tickets yet, but I'm holding. I'm not a
Right.
person to rush. The tickets will
Right.
be there.
It was 750 for a 4-day pass the
Mhm.
second weekend for all 4 days of the fest. And then the night shows were ranging from $30 to $75, $80. So if you're there I would not be going to the festival all 4 days anymore. My days of doing that are long gone, unless I brought my kids, because that would probably be the focus. Let's go do the festival, not rage all night.
Right.
You
Well, we even talked about that a little bit after Dick's last
know?
year. That
Right,
full pass. Is that something that either one of us really wants to commit to? And I think
right.
that's you're all in. You can't change that pass.
I guess it was out actually $250 more the second weekend because the Rolling Stones, Foo
Mhm.
Fighters. We'll talk about it a little bit later, but I mean, the Rolling Stones originally, when they were going to play during quarantine, the one that got canceled, they were the only band playing Thursday, the first Thursday. That's when they added that. And so I guess they cost money. They're the Rolling Stones.
Yeah, I mean, that's just it. I saw them actually, it was just about 20 years ago on the 40 Licks tour, their
Right.
40th anniversary.
Yeah.
So it's kind of mind blowing that they're still going to be out there when you put it in perspective like that. But you
Right.
know what? You don't have to go see the Stones. And that's what I like is there's so many options.
Right.
You can figure it out and I think tailor the experience to what you want to do. And I will just say I'm kind of impressed. The group of people that I'm going to be with, we have a Trello board for all the shows that we want to do. So everybody kind of knows what we're into and it is growing tremendously. So just a thought for anyone who might be considering it's a nice way to put everything in front of your face.
There you go. All right, we're going to talk more about that at
I
the end because you
me
got
too.
you got some comments from social media. But we also have Tim Blum. from Mother Hips coming up, talking about, we put out quite a few things of his because the interview we did, he was so great with. We went through almost album by album and talked about it. And then this is pretty much what's, the leftovers, so to speak, a little flashback, but talking about existing outside the industry proper, his songwriting process. We get into a little bit with Jason Crosby. And also, if you did not know, Mother Hips was in Guitar Hero. And he told the story of how they ended up having songs in Guitar Hero. But before we get into that, let's jump into
the top 3 stories of the week.
All right, Kevin, we have some stories. So the first one I'm going to get into was a complete surprise to me. And I don't know how I didn't know about this, but because it's been on my mind, I was online searching some stuff for Jazz Fest, and I got this article from the New York Times, and this was just published a couple days ago about Winter Jazz Fest. And I thought, wait a second, what's that? I know about Winter Wondergrass, right? I'm kind of going through it all. So the headline of this article was Winter Jazz Fest has company, Unity Jazz Festival. And then I thought, well, there's another one I don't know about. Like, where have I been? Clearly, I'm out of the loop. So I don't know if you're familiar with these, but these are New York City-based festivals. And actually, Winter Jazz Fest has been held since 2005. So it has totally missed me. I will say, though, it is very much straight up on the more traditional jazz kind of genre. So maybe
it.
that's why.
Right. Is it at an indoor venue or multiple venues?
Yeah, so the first one was held at the Knitting Factory. Remember the Knitting Factory? That was one of my favorite spots to go to. In Manhattan. And then Lincoln Center, I think, has hosted some things. That's where this Unity Jazz Festival is coming out of now. So yeah, it's a variety of different venues, throughout the city, and it's grown and grown and grown since then. It's more than a week of concerts, satellite events, and it does offer a lot of flavors of jazz in theaters, rock halls, small rooms. So it's a huge thing. And I'm kind of like embarrassed to admit that I didn't know. But the news here is that on top of this already massive, decades running festival, now we have something called Unity Jazz Festival, which is pretty ambitiously titled for sure. And that had its inaugural weekend at Lincoln Center this past weekend, 2 nights, 16 sets on 3 stages near Columbus Circle. And so my take on this and why I feel this is news is that if it seems like there's enough support for jazz to have that much happening at exactly the same time, that's pretty amazing, I think, to say about where we're at in 2024. Hopefully, even a city like New York City could sustain that.
Yeah, that's so cool. I love the idea of that. I know John Zorn does something like that, or he has in the past, where 8 different venues across 4 days. He played at certain ones, but people were playing his music even if he wasn't there, kind of thing. It's fascinating because you can pick and choose, you
Mm-hmm.
know.
Yeah.
And you don't, sometimes being at the festival grounds all day, it can be much. It can be a little much, and you can't leave and come back necessarily. Once you leave, you aren't coming back.
Right, exactly. And you really have to prepare yourself, to be wherever you're going to be for that whole day, if that's really what you want to do. And I agree, it's nice to be able to bounce around. I like that. And I know it's not always possible. But, you know, for something like this, I guess there's some reasons why these 2 festivals ended up kind of smushed together. I think there's some other industry music events happening at the same time. But definitely want to share this article. It's a very long article in the Critics Notebook section of the Times, and it gets into some really great specifics with tons of links about a lot of the performers. So I've already found a couple artists that I want to dig into, and I'm sure that everybody out there would too. So that is our first story of the week. Second, All right. I know that we talk about streaming platforms, aka Spotify, a lot, but news just keeps coming out. And I think what it does for me, Kevin, is continues to kind of round out the picture of what that industry is actually like. So there's a new study put out within the last week, found there are over 1 million manipulated tracks on streaming platforms. And I thought to myself, well, what could that mean? So basically, 1 million tracks have been sped up, slowed down, modified. What something is different about it. They're getting millions upon millions of streams. Okay. So where does this come in? Well, usually those tracks don't have legal licensing, but someone is collecting royalties on them, not the original artist. So there's an infringement on copyright, and all of those streams are overtaking the many others that are never going to see a cent at all. So I feel like you kind of have this other battle waging that isn't even the original artists, but other people who are now using their songs. And it's really on the platforms to figure out what those are and take them down, but it's not happening.
Right. And now, correct me if I'm wrong, but some people actually seek out these sped up or slow down tracks. It's a genre that people are into, right?
Yeah, I mean, and listen, I've noodled with different software and whatnot to do similar things. I have a couple of those on my Instagram page, or 30 seconds long. So it's not an entire song, but absolutely. And I love a remix. It's all about attribution. So people can find those. They should be able to listen to them if they want that. But I think it's really coming down to now you have this very harsh, kind of very specific language around royalties. And so I think it's even more incumbent on Spotify and those other platforms to make sure that whoever's getting paid should deserve to get paid.
Yep. There you go.
Yeah. So, these just keep coming out. And every time I see them, like I said, it kind of layers onto everything else and really starts to help us understand how uh, unregulated parts of that music streaming business is, even while they're trying to make all kinds of rules and regulations about it.
I thought you
So
were
yeah,
going to say how I thought you were going to say how evil Spotify is, but
I mean, it is. Although I'll just share this. I've started a little bit of an album on my personal Facebook page because I have drank the Kool-Aid and I love seeing what the day list for me is, and it changes a couple times every 24 hours. Maybe at some point, Kevin, I'll share the really interesting names that are given to my day list. And it's not just me. Wow, I guess it picks from things I've listened to at certain points, like on a Friday afternoon. Anyway, they have some kind of psychological hold on me, and I can't stop looking at them. So that's a whole other situation we'll maybe get into at some point. A whole other situation, though, Madonna. I hadn't even thought about Madonna in quite a long time, but this story is absolutely everywhere. So if you haven't heard, or maybe if you have, Madonna has been sued by fans in New York over a late concert start time. And Kevin, I left this one for last just because it's a little more fun to me than the other stories, but this is something that we deal with a lot, right? Show times, start times being whatever they are. So let's kind of get into just a little bit of the facts and then we can talk about it. So this is two fans, as far as I know. They're suing Madonna for being late by more than 2 hours for a show last month at the Barclays Center. So the case was brought by Michael Fellows, Jonathan Haddon. They said many ticket holders have attended concerts on a weeknight. They have to get up early to go to work the next day. Well, yeah, take care of their family responsibilities. Yeah. So they're suing Live Nation and the venue for false advertising, negligent misrepresentation, and unfair and deceptive trade practices. That's so serious sounding. I
right.
mean, Kevin, like, what do you think about all of this?
I wonder if Ticketmaster will just settle with them so they don't have to go through discovery. Because once you open up that door, then the lawyers can start asking for who knows what documents may come out that, it might help Congress. in their hearings that they're doing about Ticketmaster and Live Nation. I think it's a can of worms they don't want to open. And as for the lawsuit itself, at first I want to chuckle at it. I do chuckle at it, but it's the way to hold corporations responsible. People say that the woman who spilled the hot coffee on herself and sued McDonald's and won. They're like, of course coffee's hot. Well, it was extreme. I mean, it made McDonald's be more responsible for what they were serving people. And it might be dumb, but I guess it's our only way to hold some of these corporations accountable. Is he suing Madonna also because she was the one late?
No. So, as far as I know, the suit is being brought against Live Nation and the Barclays Center. But Madonna has faced similar lawsuits before. I found back in 2019, the Madam X tour, Madonna was sued multiple times for the exact same reason, for starting concerts late. Um, Same thing. At that point, there was another guy, I don't remember his name, alleged that they had moved the concert 2 hours later than originally planned, too late for him to attend. And in that case, I think most of the suits were voluntarily dismissed. Um, you know, so like kind of what you're saying. But I part of this also, and I think you bring up a good point, is um, there does seem to be historical reference for this, and not only just the start times themselves, but Madonna's reaction to that. I think she posted somewhere that a queen is never late. I mean, she's a performer. I don't really know what to say. This one's tough for me because I do agree that sometimes it takes something that seems small to have a larger effect that maybe isn't just about Madonna, it's about the industry. And basically, as a fan, you feel like you have absolutely no control sometimes,
All
over
right.
things that are controllable.
All right.
Um,
Goose is scared right now.
well, I think I actually mentioned that to you when we were first kind of chatting about this earlier in the week, which is, wow. I mean, that is one band, and we all know we love Goose, right? But they have definitely been taken to task on social media many times for whatever reason, for starting much later than a lot of us are used to. And in a lot of cases, it's music fans like us who see a lot of shows, so we know that they're going to go late. We get the deal, right? The situation, but
We
it ha-
know we know with Phish they're going to be between 33 and 38 minutes after the ticket time.
yeah.
So you know that if it says to have 7:30 on the ticket, they're going to start at 8:03 to 8:08.
Mm.
You know that's what's going to happen, which is the beauty. With Goose, sometimes it was like 45 minutes, pushing
Mhm.
an hour, which you wonder what's going on. Why is it so hard to get to the stage?
Yeah, and then I also think because my brain tends to go toward crew experience even more than artist experience, to be completely honest with you. So in my mind, I think to myself in those situations of the kind and dedicated souls backstage who are running around trying to find people or assemble a group, that kind of thing. And I've seen it many times from backstage at various shows where all kinds of things are happening and you do lose track of time. So you need those people around with some kind of voice to be like, yo, get up there. And it doesn't always happen.
Coach isn't doing his job. We'll blame it on Coach. Throw him
I
under the
wasn't
bus.
naming names. But I mean that's a lot of responsibility actually to have, especially when you're also there with your friends or people that are in town, and it's just a lot of stimulation,
Hmm?
right?
Good call. Good way to put it there.
Okay.
All right. So that's going to wrap up our top 3 stories of the week. Make sure if you're listening, go on social media. You got any thoughts on any of these stories? We'd love to hear what you're thinking. Next, we're going to jump into our flashback interview with Tim Bluhm, who is in the Mother Hips and been around San Francisco band, been around for a long time. They were on Rick Rubin's label for a little while, Deaf American when the Black Crowes were on there and Johnny Cash and whatnot. Then they went independent, and we talked a little bit about how it is going out being independent and got into some songwriting. So We'll catch you on the other side. Is it difficult to maintain authenticity and creative integrity while navigating the expectations and pressures of the music industry?
I wouldn't know a whole lot about that. I feel like there has never been a ton of pressure on me or the Mother Hips, because when we were first releasing, when we were releasing records on a major label, there was pressure, but we just refused to let it into our creative process. We should have probably, but we were so adamant about doing it our own way that I don't remember ever feeling a lot of pressure then. And then once we got dropped and we already had a fan base across the country, there's really no pressure at all, because we just need to be ourselves. We just need to play the music that we wanted to play and
Right.
write. And that's kind of always been the way it's been for us.
Almost kick into that Grateful Dead mood. You hit the road and
Yeah, you just we've always just kind of been ourselves, and we've never had a like a hit single or anything. So we're never trying to live up to something that we did right before. We're just trying to make new records that are maybe exploring some new ground and trying to make some new feelings and some new sounds on our records. But it's always been pretty like there hasn't been a lot of pressure on that process to me,
right.
from my experience.
Okay. So then you ended up, I guess I bookend this, and then when you get to Red Tandy, there was a few years in between, but you had the Green Hills of Earth, and that was on Future Farmer. I'm not sure, how did that label end up? Is that something that was the band's, or was that an outside label that brought you in?
No, that was an indie label from San Francisco that had some success with, I think I'm embarrassed that I don't remember all the details, but I think they had released some Granddaddy records, and so they had some success, and they had a lot of indie cred, and which at the time for us was kind of cool, because we didn't really have indie cred,
Right.
like we were sort of mislabeled a lot. I mean, American Recordings gave us a lot of credibility because that label was putting out some fantastic music.
Johnny Cash right off the top. I mean,
yeah, and the Black Crowes, and there's some really great music coming out of there. So we had some credibility for sure. But the indie thing had kind of evaded us. Not that we were specifically looking for it, but we've always been our sound is kind of hard to categorize, and
you
it's
can't
kind of,
market it. That's their issue.
but you have to label it. It needs writers and journalists have to call it something.
Everything. It's
But we
got to
never,
have a name. It's got to have a name.
yeah, well, it has to. You have to market it. But we never were happy with any of the things we got called. Like almost ever, we didn't agree with it, and we were upset about it for a while, and that went away eventually. Now I don't really care
Right.
whatever it's there. It's not for me to decide, but I'm happy with if someone wants to listen to it. I'm grateful for that.
Right.
I don't care who they are.
Right. What is the songwriting process for you guys now that we're now that we're into the new millennium?
Yeah, it's actually changed quite a bit in recent years. In the past, I was the primary songwriter, and I wrote 90% of the songs on my own. And as the band has progressed, Greg has gotten more involved in songwriting, and certainly in his own solo career is very prolific. He writes a lot of wonderful music, but we didn't really collaborate all that much. It was the song itself, the melody and the chords would always come from primarily me, but and then him as well. And then it wasn't until kind of really during the pandemic when Greg and I don't really know, it wasn't conscious, but we just started writing together a little bit more. We were sharing music, iPhone recordings and stuff. We were just sharing them on text, and we would go take hikes outdoors because that was something we could do together. and we would just like sit down on a rock or something and just play each other little sketches that we might have on our phones.
Right.
And then we would work off of the other guy's ideas. And so the last two records, Glowing Lantern and When We Disappear, were both far more collaborative. And that's actually been really cool. Like, I like it a lot more, actually.
Kevin, we're going to get into the rest of the interview with Tim in a couple minutes, but we want to take a second to remind everybody, if you are not already, please follow us on social media at All That Jam Pod, including YouTube. And Kevin, I haven't had a chance to talk to you about this yet. I saw some video of you and Peter Negroponte on YouTube from the recent chat you
No,
had with him, right?
no, that was the original one. That was my first
Oh,
attempt. Yes. So,
cool.
but yes,
That's
that's on
great.
there. Yes.
I love it. I just wanted to
Um,
mention I thought it looked great.
right. We need to think about YouTube. We're going to talk shop live on air here. We need to think more about YouTube. Somebody commented the other day, no video, I'm not watching it,
Yeah.
which I
We're
guess is a legitimate point of view. I just, I don't know. It's tough to
it
go
is.
live. You can't edit.
Well, that is true. Yeah. You know what? I think there's probably a way we can make it happen. Maybe not for everything, but for certain things.
There.
So yeah, YouTube. Make sure you're finding us there. There's a lot of great stuff there. And then also, Kevin, as you are uploading all of the episodes every single day, a lot of information in the show notes that you'd want to check out. And then, of course, as you're listening, anywhere you get podcasts, please make sure that you are liking us, subscribing, leave a review. Tell us what you're thinking. We would really appreciate that. So, Kevin, I know we're going to get back into the interview with Tim, but do you want to tell us a little bit about what is coming up this week?
Yes, I do. Tomorrow, Tuesday, we have Disco, Kevin and Pickle. They're talking about their 2024 tour plans, including a 4-night Colorado run that's starting the 24th, which is this weekend. On Wednesday, we got Rachel and Luke Miller and Rachel Eisenstadt. Luke is from Lotus. Rachel is from Raven Jane, about their band Sugar Nova and how they approach it and how it's different from their other projects. Thursday, Jordan from Spafford talking about some new studio stuff, working with Matt Ruffino, who was a guest a while back and works for the Today Show. He was a great guy. He actually hinted towards it while we were talking to him way back when, so that's fascinating. You'll want to check that out. Friday, getting to know the Trichromes. If you don't know them, you're going to get to know them Friday. Saturday, we have Ryan Jalbert from Motet on the differences between his band Jalbatross and the Motet. And then finally on Saturday, we have Getting to Know Marble Eyes with Eric Gould, who was Pink Talking Fish and Particle. And this is his band that he has with Adrian from Twiddle and some other guys. So make sure you check that out. Now, let's jump back in. We're going to pick back up with songwriting with Tim here. And they had competing documentaries come out. They took a hiatus that was really only like 5 months. And the Guitar Hero thing. The Guitar Hero thing is fascinating. So we'll see on the other side. Do you feel like through your writing, are there underlying themes or messages that you hope listeners do connect with?
I would definitely say that there's not any sort of underlying theme that spanned the course of the career.
It's a lot of years, right?
Yeah, I mean, it's probably the themes that kind of exemplify anyone's life in a certain era, like of a certain age. You know, when you're 21, you're going to sing about a lot about girls and romantic relationships and stuff like that. And then
Right.
you kind of go through. I mean, there's certain things that you just don't want to sing a song about, like financial issues are not really a fun thing to write music about. Personally, I don't think politics is a very fun thing to write music about, although there's a good argument for using one's platform to try to change people's minds. It's not my personal.
Political songs have a shelf life.
Yeah, well, some, not all. Bob Dylan wrote some ones that still are pretty, they can be relevant. But there's
I'm
some.
with you though on the political thing. I'm
It's just not.
totally
It's not my thing. It's not my thing. I'm not a big news hound personally, so I like to read news like from like the 1800s more than I do from the current day. Um, but there's examples of satire in literature that like Mark Twain, Connecticut Yankee, and King Arthur's Court is a good example of a book that was political satire at the time. And if you read it now, it's still like surprisingly relevant and
boy.
biting. So there's ways to do it, but in any case, that's not really my cup of tea.
Right, right. So you guys ended up taking a hiatus. You ended up having competing documentaries in 2004 about you. What was going on around then?
Well, I think maybe I don't know. I really had no control over any of those movies or the decisions to make them. But maybe there was a feeling that we were gonna be that we were like it was over and we were gonna be we were history,
Right.
and I wouldn't have been able to debate that at the time. We didn't know. We did take a hiatus. Greg decided he was done, and
A lot of years in.
yeah, and I don't remember what year that was, honestly, but it only
2004, they
lasted
say, is what the internet
2000.
says.
Yeah, that's okay. Makes sense. It only lasted for about maybe 15 months. It
Right, you
wasn't.
ended up with Red Tandy. Actually,
Yeah,
at the end of 2004, you had Red Tandy.
yeah. So ultimately, we didn't want to quit. We thought we did. I mean, Greg was the first one to kind of cry uncle, but I was right behind him. Honestly, we were just so disillusioned and tired and just over it. But it took that year off to sort of to give us a perspective on what it was that we've been doing and why it was special and why it was probably something that was worth pursuing further.
Right. So the EP, those songs were not played live before they were recorded, or
No, most of the recordings we do these days, probably in the last 10 years or so, have all been we usually create the music pretty close up to the time that we record it, and so we don't really play any of the stuff live until the record comes out. So it used to be different when we were writing a ton more songs and we weren't recording as many records. We would test out the songs during our tours and stuff. But now that we don't play nearly as many shows, but we record a lot more records, we generally, no one hears this stuff until we play it or until the record comes out.
right. That's a good way. It's different than a way most bands we talk to are road tests. They go out and the song's been played 100 times before it gets laid down in the studio. I think that it's better to do it your way because you have the artifact and then you can go and if you want to improvise on it, if you want to change it, but you have the original artifact.
Yeah, it's more of a snapshot. It captures a moment in time, maybe a little bit better. I wouldn't say that I wouldn't be able to say that one was superior to the other, but when you're in the studio and you're actually creating new music on the floor, the feeling of that, maybe it translates a little bit to the record, but just from a personal experience standpoint, that's pretty exciting to like actually be, it's like the alchemy is taking place right in front of you. And that's again, that I don't know how much value that has to the listener, but it certainly has a lot of value to the creators of the music.
Right. I hear you. So did you ever play Rock Band?
Nope.
You never played time. You never played your song. I was hoping you'd say, "Yeah, I did damn good."
No. Greg tried it once at his like nephew's house when it first came out, and he said he couldn't. He just failed. But we're not video game. I've never played
I'm
video
with
game.
you. I love that though. That's so funny. But you ended up with Time We Had from your which album was that? Kiss the Crystal Flake.
Yeah, Kiss the Crystal Flake. Yeah,
And then you had Red Tandy and Son of a Grizzly Bear, not a Grizzly Bear.
Yeah, Grizzly Bear. Yeah, so
They could download. That's fantastic. How did that come about? Did they just come to you and say, "Hey, we want your songs"?
we had a friend that was somehow involved, and he had the opportunity to get like his some music into the video game, and so he came to us and just said, I know this is kind of strange because this was kind of at the very beginning of this type of thing. I had never heard of such a thing. And he said, you really should do it. It's a great opportunity and you'll earn some royalties from it. And so we agreed to do it. And sure enough, especially at the beginning, we made some decent money off of that.
I always say it's not selling out, it's cashing in.
Yeah, I mean, selling out is that's sort of an antiquated concept.
You have to sync licensing, things like that. I've talked to bands that got like $10,000 for a song for a sync license, and that maybe kept them alive for 6 months.
Yeah, I don't even think that anyone talks about the concept of selling out much anymore. I mean,
no.
You're going and playing
Some
shows.
punk rockers and a bunch of jam band people. You can't
Yeah.
do that in the jam band world.
Right. And I don't disagree with them necessarily, but it's just, if you sell tickets to your show, you're selling, I don't know,
Right.
whatever. It's all just like degrees, but it's never been a big issue for us.
Right. And so let's jump forward when you signed with Blue Rose and then you released your first album in 5 years. It had Jackie Green on the album. It was, it got some buzz. What was going on with that?
Well, we hooked up with Blue Rose Music, and they were Joe Paletto is the founder of the label, and he's just a remarkable guy. He's very successful in another field, and he just was looking at the music industry, and he thought he could do some good there, and he certainly has. He just really motivated us to make more music, do it, release records more quickly, and he enabled us to do that by giving us recording budgets, and it's been a fabulous ride because we've put out so much music. Greg and I both put out solo releases on Blue Rose. And Jason Crosby has put out a bunch of music on Blue Rose. And the way I met Joe Paletto was through Jason Crosby.
Oh, cool. I talked to Jason yesterday or the day before, actually.
On it for an interview, or you
yes,
just spoke?
For an interview, yes.
Oh, nice. Yeah, he's such a good guy. He's a good friend.
Good guy.
He was looking for a little help with writing some songs for his.
He mentioned that. I have a clip of him talking about working with you.
Yeah, and we just had a really good time. We were in Hawaii for a lot of it, and we had a good chemistry, and we just became really close friends, and I think wrote some pretty cool songs. It was really cool to collaborate with Jason, and that was actually, I don't do a lot of collaborative writing, so it was really fun. He's super open-minded, and he's
now you do, you and Greg, and
maybe that's what kind of broke the ice for me,
Okay, Kevin. One of my favorite things is being able to listen back to the interviews in a more complete form, which is really cool after we've had the clips airing. So I love the fact that we're able to do that and kind of push all that out. As I was listening, I was thinking, okay, shows coming up. We spent a lot of time at the beginning of today's show talking about Jazz Fest and then the other Jazz Fest. But back to New Orleans, as we were saying. So I'll be there the second weekend, getting in, I think, April 30th, and I'll be there till the 5th of May. And so clearly lots of stuff going on. Carl Denson, Lettuce, I mean, you name it. I am missing the new master sounds. And that's the thing, is it is so difficult. We actually had a house ready to go for weekend 1 and then changed it to weekend 2. I mean, it's so challenging if you can't be there the whole time, which most of us cannot for various reasons. You have to just make a decision. And ultimately I said, okay, weekend 2 sounds like a really great one. There's always a lot of opinions, of course. I have found generally, and this could just be my interpretation or what I've seen online, looking at comments and asking people, it seems as though generally the Jazz Fest demographic, like participant goer, is a lot kinder than maybe what I'm used to in some of the other jam band social media scenes. So number one, I just want to say that. The questions that were being asked, some of them had opinions, but it just didn't feel quite as intense, I guess, as what I'm used to maybe on Phish threads and whatnot. So that's the first thing I just want to say, is it seemed pretty gentle. But Mia Hernandez, this was on Instagram. said, dude, how many times are we going to have the Foo Fighters here at this point? It is played out. So sometimes people kind of just look at some of the top acts, right? And like, why are they still here? Fair point. And I think they were another one that was booked and canceled a couple times due to COVID, Taylor Hawkins, so there's always that context around it. Um, but they have been there, multiple times. And then another one that I saw that I did laugh at, honestly, given our conversation about the Winter Jazz Fest, is this was Jackson Talon said, crazy how there aren't really that many jazz artists on a jazz festival bill. And I did stop and really think about that for a couple minutes. So, Kevin, first, before I say anything, what are your thoughts on that comment?
I mean, I've always thought that in the back of my head, but they have the jazz tent, set up, and it's the Jazz and Heritage Festival. So you get, you have the Mardi Gras Indians, you have the Zydeco stage, you have the more straight jazz, like sometimes inside, they have the more, you know, I don't know what to call it, classical jazz, and then you'll have the gospel tent, and so I feel like it permeates, but no, it isn't like you're getting John Baptiste, I think, is the closest thing to a jazz artist that's on the main stage and a big name, because nobody's going to buy tickets to come see even a Herbie Hancock or something. You aren't selling the tickets you are with a Rolling Stones. And they, in order to stay open, they have to sell the Rolling Stones. And I feel like they give back to the lower artists, not lower, but to the smaller artists that people don't hear of, and they get a chance. Like Papa Molly Trio finally made it this year, that kind of thing. So I guess it's a balance, and a lot of people want to see the Foo Fighters.
Yeah, absolutely. So I think a couple things, and I want to say at one point we actually dug into the history of Jazz Fest a little bit, but I went back because from the beginning, the festival was envisioned, yes, a very important event to have cultural significance, but also popular appeal. That was just as much of a pillar for the impetus for creating Jazz Fest in the first place, as long as they can keep the nonprofit going, right, which is really connected to oversee the festival. So the concept, big daytime fair, multiple stages. Maybe you could say that some of the indigenous music styles have been, quote unquote, pushed maybe to different parts of the festival, but at the same time, they're there. And I guarantee that, and I'll probably be the same for people attending who get to see some of that music. If they weren't there for Foo Fighters, they would never catch all the other stuff
Right.
too. And I think that's really important.
Right. One year we right before Widespread came on, this guy was like, yeah, I'm heading over to see CC Adcock. And we were like, cool. And about halfway through Widespread's first song, we went over to see this guy, CC Adcock, swamp guitar player, trio, stand-up bass, like Reverend Horton Heat, but Louisiana swamp style, and fell in love. I still listen. I went and bought the album at the tent, at the Tower tent or whatever it was, the Virgin tent, and I still listen to that one to this day. So that's the beauty. That's the true beauty of it. If you let yourself go and be like, oh, that's cool, Widespread's playing, I can see Widespread anytime,
Exactly. And, at a certain point, you do have to make those decisions. And also, I think, be flexible, because you're never going to see everything. And so if you go into it with that attitude of whatever I see is going to be amazing and fun and maybe different, then you're not going to feel like you're always missing out, because it is hard to explain. But even at a music festival where you're there, you could still have that feeling like I'm missing out on so much stuff, because there's just multiple.
Every year I went, I missed out on the Neville Brothers. I might catch like the last song or two because the Radiators played on the other side at the same time.
Well, there you go. Yeah, it's going to happen. And I can't wait. Maybe if I can get my act together, I'll do a little like notebook from down there, because I've never even been to New Orleans, which is weird. I've been all over this country 10 times, but just have not been there. So I can't wait. And I'm excited to see, as the next couple months, roll by, more information will come out, and there's just going to be a lot happening.
There you go. Yes, the first time I landed in New Orleans, it was the first time I felt home. I don't know how to explain it beyond that, but I felt like I belonged there. And I went for 10 years until I had a kid, and
Yeah.
9 years, and a Mardi Gras. So I went 10 times. And,
That's
once you have
amazing.
a kid, what can you do?
Things do change, and I will just say, Kevin, that feeling that you're describing is how I have always felt when I go to New York City.
No.
It is just a feeling of being complete. My energy levels immediately go up. I'm comfortable. It's not perfect. It's not supposed to be, but it is like the right place, and you just kind of know. That's amazing.
Right. So wherever you find that, remember, stay beautiful, but don't stay underground too long. I'll see you next week, Amanda.
All right, Kevin, have a great one.